Something is watching you, and it is not by accident. There are forces that monitor your progress, waiting for the exact moment to strike. Have you ever felt resistance when you were close to breakthrough? That is not coincidence. Hidden eyes, silent observers, tracking your destiny step by step. But today something shifts, because what was hidden is about to be exposed, and what once watched you will now be destroyed. There are moments in your life that cannot be explained by logic. Moments when everything seems to be aligning, and suddenly, without warning, it collapses. Opportunities vanish, connections break. Favor turns into resistance. And deep within your spirit, you feel it, something is not right. This is not ordinary delay. This is not random misfortune. This is observation, followed by interference. You must understand this truth. Not every battle in your life is visible. Some battles begin in realms you cannot see, where your name is being discussed, your progress is being monitored, and your future is being targeted. Monitoring spirits do not attack blindly. They watch first. They study patterns. They analyze your habits. They track your moments of weakness and even your moments of growth. They wait. They wait for the perfect time to disrupt what God is building in your life. Have you ever noticed how things go wrong right after you share good news? Right after you announce a plan? Right after you step into something new? That is not coincidence. That is exposure. Because when something sacred is revealed too early, it becomes a target. Monitoring spirits thrive on information. They feed on visibility. They gain access through what you speak, what you display, and what you allow. This is why some breakthroughs never fully manifest. Not because they were not meant for you, but because they were intercepted, delayed, diverted, and sometimes completely stolen. But here is where everything begins to change. Because there are spiritual weapons that do not just defend you, they confront, they expose, they destroy. And this is where Psalm 91 steps in with power. Psalm 91 is not just comfort, it is covering. It is a declaration of divine protection that confuses every monitoring force assigned to your life. When you declare it, you are not speaking empty words. You are activating a shield that operates beyond human understanding, a shield that makes you invisible to certain attacks, a shield that redirects what was sent against you. You begin to dwell in a place where arrows cannot find you, where traps cannot hold you, where unseen dangers are neutralized before they reach you. But many people make a critical mistake. They read Psalm 91 casually, without authority, without understanding, without intention. And because of that, they never see its full power. This is not a passive scripture. This is a weapon. And weapons must be used with precision, with boldness, with spiritual awareness. When you declare, "He who dwells in the secret place," you are not reciting. You are positioning yourself. You are stepping into a realm where access is restricted, where not everything can follow you, where not everything can reach you. Monitoring spirits lose clarity when you enter that place. Their vision becomes distorted. Their assignments begin to fail because you are no longer operating in the open. You are hidden, covered, guarded. But understand, this protection alone is not the full strategy, because what is watching you must not only be avoided, it must be confronted. And that is where the next level of warfare begins. There are people who stay protected but never break the cycle. They remain safe but still experience repeated patterns, repeated delays, repeated losses. Why? Because what is monitoring them is still active, still watching, still waiting. And protection without confrontation allows the enemy to remain in position. This is why your spiritual language must change. You cannot only ask for safety, you must declare disruption. You must speak confusion into every monitoring system assigned against your life. You must command every hidden observer to lose access, to lose clarity, to lose power. Because once they lose visibility, they lose control. And when they lose control, their assignments collapse. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because the moment you become aware, you become dangerous to every unseen force that once operated freely around you. You stop moving blindly. You stop exposing everything. You stop giving access through your words, your actions, and your emotions. You begin to move with spiritual intelligence. You begin to guard what is sacred. You begin to understand that not every blessing needs to be announced. Not every plan needs to be shared. Not every victory needs to be displayed. Because silence can be a strategy, and discernment can be protection. Monitoring spirits depend on your openness, but they are powerless against your wisdom. And as you begin to align yourself with the authority of Psalm 91, something shifts, atmospheres change, energy breaks, Assignments scatter because you are no longer an easy target. You are no longer exposed. You are no longer accessible. And what once watched you begins to lose its grip. This is the beginning, not the end. Because what has been watching will soon be confronted. There is a level of warfare most people never reach because they stop at protection and never step into confrontation. They pray for safety, they ask for covering, but they never rise to the place where they begin to answer back to what has been speaking against them. And that is where cycles remain unbroken, because what is watching you is not silent. It speaks, it reports, it accuses, it manipulates outcomes behind the scenes. This is why some battles feel repetitive, like you are reliving the same frustration in different forms. Different people, same betrayal. Different opportunities, same collapse. Different seasons, same delay. That is not coincidence. That is a pattern being reinforced by something that has studied you for too long. Monitoring spirits do not just watch, they collaborate, they send reports. They reinforce attacks through repetition until it becomes your normal, until you start believing this is just how life is. But today that lie is broken, because this is where Psalm 35 enters the battlefield. Psalm 35 is not gentle, it is not passive, it is a direct confrontation, a legal declaration in the spiritual realm. It calls for God to arise and fight those who fight you, to oppose those who oppose your destiny, to scatter those who secretly plot against your progress. When you begin to declare Psalm 35, something aggressive shifts in the atmosphere. You are no longer just hiding. You are calling for exposure. You are calling for reversal. You are calling for divine intervention against every hidden agenda. Because some attacks will not stop until they are confronted. You must understand this clearly. Silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes silence is permission. Permission for what is hidden to continue operating. Permission for what is watching to keep reporting. Permission for what is assigned to remain comfortable. And when you stay silent too long, cycles grow stronger. But the moment you begin to speak with authority, cycles begin to crack. Psalm 35 teaches you how to speak like someone who knows they are backed by heaven. Not begging, not hoping, but declaring, commanding, calling things into order. You begin to say, "Contend with those who contend with me." That is not weakness, that is authority. You are inviting divine justice into your situation. You are refusing to carry battles that were never yours to carry. You are placing the fight back into the hands of the one who cannot lose. And this changes everything, because once divine confrontation begins, hidden systems start collapsing. People who once had access lose it. Situations that seemed locked begin to shift. Delays that felt permanent begin to break. Because what was operating in secrecy is now being dragged into the light. Have you ever seen how certain relationships suddenly fall apart right when you start praying seriously? That is not loss, that is exposure. Because not everyone around you is assigned for your growth. Some are positioned to monitor, to report, to subtly influence, to delay. And when you begin to pray with authority, those connections cannot remain. They disconnect, they withdraw, they reveal themselves. And sometimes it feels painful, sometimes it feels confusing, but it is necessary. Because anything that can be used against you must be removed from around you. Psalm 35 does not just fight external battles, it disrupts internal patterns as well. It breaks the cycles of fear, the cycles of doubt, the cycles of hesitation that monitoring spirits rely on. Because as long as you remain uncertain, you remain predictable. And as long as you remain predictable, you remain vulnerable. But when your voice changes, your pattern changes. And when your pattern changes, their strategy fails. This is why your declaration matters. This is why your consistency matters. Because one prayer will shake something, but persistent authority will dismantle it completely. You cannot confront once and then go silent. You cannot declare once and then return to fear. This is a sustained battle. And sustained battles require sustained voices. Every time you speak Psalm 35 with intention, you are sending disruption into unseen systems. You are declaring that what was built against you will not stand. You are refusing to be monitored without consequence. You are refusing to be targeted without resistance. And slowly but powerfully, the tide begins to turn. But there is something deeper, because not every attack is just about delay. Some attacks are about reputation, about how you are perceived, about what is being spoken about you when you are not present. Because monitoring spirits do not just watch your actions, they influence narratives, they twist stories, They create misunderstandings. They plant seeds of doubt in the minds of others. And suddenly doors close, favor shifts, opportunities disappear without clear explanation. This is not always visible, but it is very real. And this is why confrontation must go deeper. You must not only fight what is happening around you, you must address what is being spoken about you in unseen places, because words carry power, even unseen words, even whispered accusations, even silent agreements made against you. Psalm 35 begins to dismantle those narratives. It begins to reverse false reports. It begins to silence voices that were never meant to speak over your destiny, because where truth rises, deception cannot remain. And when divine justice speaks, every false system must bow. You begin to see restoration, clarity, alignment. Things that were once blocked begin to open again, not because of luck, but because what was interfering has been challenged and is now losing ground. But this is still not the final level, because exposure and confrontation are powerful, but there is a deeper dimension where complete destruction happens, where what once monitored you loses all authority permanently. And that is where the next phase begins. There is a deeper layer of warfare, one that many people avoid, because it is not just about protection, it is not just about confrontation, it is about final judgment against what has refused to let you go. This is where cycles don't just weaken, they end completely. Because some forces assigned against your life are persistent. They don't retreat easily. They don't stop after exposure. They don't disappear after confrontation. They regroup. They re-strategize. They attempt to return in different forms through different people in different seasons. And if you are not spiritually equipped for this level, you will find yourself winning battles but never winning the war. This is why Psalm 199 is not for the passive. It is not for those who are afraid to speak with authority. It is for those who have reached a point where enough is enough, where delay is no longer acceptable, where repeated attacks are no longer tolerated, where you make a decision that what has been fighting you must be permanently dismantled. Psalm 199 is a declaration of divine judgment. It addresses forces that have spoken against you without cause, attacks that were initiated without reason, opposition that has followed you even when you chose peace. Have you ever tried to avoid conflict, yet conflict still found you? Have you ever stayed silent, yet accusations still rose against you? Have you ever chosen to walk away, yet resistance followed you into new places? That is not normal. That is pursuit. And pursuit requires termination. Because what pursues you without cause will not stop until it is stopped. This is where many people hesitate. They stay in a place of defense. They stay in a place of reaction. They stay in a place of hoping things will change on their own. But hope without authority leaves doors open. And open doors invite repeated intrusion. Psalm 1:9 closes those doors permanently. It is not about revenge. It is about justice. It is about calling for a divine verdict against what has been operating illegally in your life. Because not every presence has the right to remain. Not every voice has the right to speak. Not every force has the right to influence your destiny. And when you begin to declare Psalm 109, you are calling for a higher court to intervene, a court that sees everything, a court that cannot be deceived, a court that judges with perfect accuracy. You begin to say, let every false accusation return to its sender. Let every hidden agenda collapse. Let every assignment without permission be terminated. This is not emotional speaking. This is legal authority. Because in the spiritual realm, legality matters, access matters, permission matters. And once something loses its legal ground, it must leave immediately. But here is what most people don't realize. Sometimes the reason something continues is because it still finds agreement, not always through your words, but through your fear, through your doubt, through your acceptance of patterns that were never meant to stay. When you believe this is just how things are, you create space. When you accept delay as permanent, you allow continuation. When you normalize struggle, you reinforce cycles. But the moment you shift your mindset, you remove agreement. And without agreement, access is denied. Psalm 1:9 works powerfully when your mind aligns with your declaration. When you no longer tolerate what you once endured. When you no longer excuse what you once ignored. When you rise into the understanding that your life is not random, it is targeted. And if it has been targeted, then it can be defended. It can be restored. It can be secured. There are people who reach this level and begin to see sudden shifts. Long-standing battles end quickly. Situations that drag for years resolve suddenly. Opposition that seems strong collapses without explanation, because what was sustaining it has been cut off. You must also understand something critical. Destruction in the spiritual realm often manifests as sudden clarity in the physical. You start seeing people differently. You start recognizing patterns you once ignored. You start noticing what no longer aligns with your path. And this is not confusion, this is revelation. Because once something loses power over you, it becomes visible. And once it becomes visible, it can no longer control you. This is the power of final level warfare. It does not just protect you, it does not just fight for you, it frees you completely. But freedom comes with responsibility, because once you are free, you must guard what has been restored. You must protect what has been rebuilt. You must stay aligned with the authority that brought you out, because the goal is not just to win once. The goal is to remain untouchable, to remain unreachable by what once had access, to remain positioned in a place where monitoring is impossible and interference is ineffective. This is where Psalm 91:35 and 109 begin to work together, not separately, but as a system: protection, confrontation, distraction, a complete strategy, a complete covering, a complete victory. And when you begin to operate in this understanding, you are no longer reacting to attacks. You are controlling the outcome. You are walking with authority. You are moving with awareness. You are living in a place where what once watched you no longer has the power to even find you. But there is one final step, one final shift that transforms this from knowledge into unstoppable manifestation. There is one final shift that separates those who fight occasionally from those who walk in permanent authority. It is the shift from reaction to dominion. Because many people only rise when something goes wrong. They pray when they feel attacked. They declare when they feel pressure. They seek protection when they sense danger. But once things calm down, they return to silence. They return to routine. They return to spiritual passivity. And in that silence, systems begin to rebuild quietly, strategically, patiently. Because what once monitored you does not always disappear instantly. Sometimes it waits for you to become comfortable again, to lower your guard, to stop speaking, to stop declaring, to stop standing in authority. And the moment you relax, it attempts to re-enter. This is why dominion is not an event. It is a lifestyle. It is a daily posture, a daily awareness, a daily alignment with power. Because consistency closes doors that occasional effort leaves open. You must understand this deeply. Victory is not sustained by intensity alone. It is sustained by consistency. Small, daily, intentional alignment with authority. That is what makes you untouchable. This is where everything you have learned comes together. Psalm 91 is no longer something you say only in fear. It becomes your dwelling, your mindset, your identity. You wake up with it. You move with it. You think from it. You operate from a place of covering without needing to ask for it constantly, because you know where you are positioned. Psalm 35 becomes your voice, not just in crisis, but in awareness. You begin to confront things early, before they grow, before they settle, before they take root. You sense shifts quickly. You address them immediately. You do not wait for problems to become patterns. You disrupt them at the seed level. And Psalm 109 becomes your boundary, your line of final authority, where anything that crosses into your life without permission is not negotiated with. It is removed. It is judged. It is terminated. Immediately, this is dominion. This is where your life stops being reactive and becomes controlled, not by fear, not by circumstances, but by authority. Because once you understand your position, you stop begging for change. You start enforcing it. There is a difference. Begging waits. Authority acts. Begging hopes. Authority declares. Begging questions. Authority commands. And when you step into this level, your environment begins to respond to you differently. Things align faster. Decisions become clearer. Paths open with less resistance. Not because challenges disappear completely, but because they no longer have power over you. You move through them instead of being stopped by them. There is also a deeper awareness that begins to rise within you. Discernment sharpens. You sense intentions faster. You recognize energy quicker. You feel when something is off before it fully manifests. And this awareness becomes your advantage. Because what you detect early, you can stop early. What you confront early cannot grow. How cycles are permanently broken, not just through powerful moments, but through sustained awareness, sustained authority, sustained alignment. You also begin to understand the power of your words on a deeper level, not just as prayers, but as commands. as declarations that shape outcomes, because your voice carries authority when it is aligned with truth. And when you speak consistently, you build an atmosphere around your life, an atmosphere where certain things cannot survive, where negativity struggles to exist, where interference cannot settle, where monitoring becomes impossible, because there is no access point, no opening, no agreement. And this is where your life begins to shift in a way that others cannot explain. They will see your progress, but not understand your process. They will notice your peace, but not comprehend your authority. They will witness your breakthrough, but not recognize the battles you have already won in unseen places. And that is fine, because this level is not for display. It is for dominion. It is for stability. It is for sustained victory. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are simply walking in what has already been established. This is the final transformation. From being watched to being hidden, from being targeted to being untouchable, from being delayed to moving with unstoppable momentum. And once you reach this level, you do not go back, because you now understand something that cannot be unlearned. You understand your authority, you understand your position, you understand your power. And what once monitored your life now has no place in it. This is your moment to rise and take back what was silently targeted. You are not weak, you are not exposed, and you are not alone. Every force that watched you, every system that tracked you, has now lost its hold. You are covered, you are backed, and you are walking in authority. Let every delay break, let every hidden attack collapse, let every cycle end now. You are stepping into dominion, into clarity, into unstoppable victory. And from this moment forward, nothing watching you will ever control you again.